Broken arms, feeling turned down, realizing that things aren't going the way that you thought they would go. When we say we're ready for a breakthrough and we surrender the how, the universe will answer, but rarely in the way that we expect it to. In this episode of Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic, we dive into the bizarre, the inconvenient, and the often annoying ways that manifestations actually unfold. Because when you ask and let go, you will be guided. Just don't be surprised when it looks like a detour instead of a dream come true. Welcome, everybody, to Manifest This.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, you know
I
my
know.
story. It happened again.
I know. So tell us what happened.
Oh, well, I was on my dream trip. Remember, we talked about Japan being on my list and I really wanted to go? And
Yeah.
so I did back to back speaking gigs on a ship in Japan. Absolutely loved it. It was fantastic and so much fun. And I met some great people. And on the very last sea day, which was the day before disembarking and was my last talk, I rolled my ankle and broke my wrist. So,
Uh-huh.
yep, had an x-ray on ship. The medical staff were amazing. The cruise director and the activity director were fantastic. And my new friends that I'd met were very helpful and had surgery the next day or two. So,
So this is break number 2 in how many months?
6.
6. So how are you feeling about that?
I'm really pissed off.
I bet. I bet you are. So that's kind of what spurred our episode today is the weird way in which manifestation can work. And I'm going to argue that there is a silver lining in this break, and maybe in both of these breaks that you've had in the last 6 months, but the weird way that it works and when manifestation feels like a detour. So I thought we could kind of dive into that topic today because, it's really easy to be feeling good when life is going good, but life often is not that consistent. And I think the key here is, and I'm reading from the book Vishen Lakhiani. I know I said that wrong. He's the founder of Mind Valley. And he says, and I'm going to read this: the dips contain amazing learnings and wisdom that lead to sharper rises in the quality of life afterward. But you will need to brave the momentary pain, literally the pain of these dips. You're in pain, I know. I assure you it will be worthwhile. And in this, he goes on to say, so, you know, he's now gotten to the point as the founder of a $100 million company after declaring bankruptcy, after leaving a job at Microsoft that he was supposed to be in as an engineer. He said now he can get to the point where he says, wow, this sucks. I can't wait to see what I'm going to learn in this.
Well, as
So
you
here we
also
go.
know, I did a little level up last weekend. I leveled up to 59, level 59. So, for those of you who don't understand me, it means I had a birthday. So, I'm looking at all of these things now, thinking, man, it's got to there's got to be a bit of a change because I was so looking forward to playing pickleball again, working out again with my trainer because I brought up the strength in that arm that I broke 6 months ago. And now I'm sitting here going, what the heck is going on? So I am all ears. And yes, I'm a skeptic, but God, please help me find something.
So yeah, let's break this down a little bit. Let's talk first about the blessing in the breakdown. We just talked about a real life story, Sharon, that you're experiencing right now with a broken arm, second time this year. The other arm, so as you were healing the right one, you've now broken the left one.
Yeah.
I mean, God, goodness gracious. I mean, our hearts go out to you for sure. But this is not the victim podcast. This is the let's look at this. So we've got your broken arm. Um, I've got a couple of real life examples too. Recently, in the last 3 months, I offered a partner of mine some investment dollars to invest in a project that he was very passionate about and had an app build going, and he ran out of money, and I said, I've got some money. I'll give it to you. I'd love to invest in this project. I would love to also reap the rewards of the investment that I think this is going to return. And he turned me down. He said, "No, it's okay. I'll find it. I've got it now." And I was really upset and I kind of disappointed and almost felt rejected that I wasn't good enough or my money wasn't good enough or maybe he didn't want me as an investment partner. And I sat in that ickiness for a while. Um, but not only maybe 2 months later, I'm now working on my own project that requires its own investment dollars. And I was thinking to myself, if I had given that money to that partner, I wouldn't be able to invest in myself. And
Right.
now I can see how the breakdown was a blessing. And so back to your broken arm, and we talked about this a little bit last week. Where is the blessing in the broken arm? And when you're in pain and on painkillers, it's really hard to see the blessing.
Yeah.
But then we had a really quick conversation, and I said to you, "Didn't you want to finish that book that you've been writing? And don't you keep telling me you don't have time to write the book that you said you wanted to finish? Why don't we reframe the broken arm into the blessing of time?"
Yeah. And I see that. I mean, once we had that discussion, I noticed pre break that I'd met some great people on the ship I was on, one of whom uh, teaches writing workshops and is a writer herself. So that sort of gave me an opportunity to talk about writing with somebody else. A good friend of mine who has written a book and is writing again, she and I had a long chat about it. And a third friend of mine and I have had a chat around the book. And it sort of seems like I'm being corralled, for lack of a better term, by the universe into actually finishing this book project. In fact, one of the writers told me about a piece of software that I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll get it, and suddenly made what I was doing a lot easier. And so, yeah, I think there's the time here where I can focus on it as opposed to feeling sorry for myself that I can't join my friends playing pickleball.
Don't you think it's funny though that and sometimes it takes somebody else to point this out, but don't you think it's funny that the same cruise and same stage that you tripped on and broke your arm inevitably on was the same stage where you were collected up and gathered up by this mentor that that owns writing workshops and is a writer herself that you've now got a nice relationship with that helped you along in your healing journey. You became quite good acquaintances on that ship and will continue that afterwards. Don't you think it's ironic that the writing mentor, I'm going to call her a mentor, whatever you want to call her, but the writing angel
Yeah.
also came in the actual falling down?
You know, it's the challenge for me where my brain is wobbling is it just convenient hindsight as opposed to was it meant to be?
It's always easier, especially as a beginner, to look back and go, "Oh, I see." Even Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs always said, manifestation's easy to look at in the rearview mirror because you can
Right.
see all the pieces. But where we want to move to, or where I would encourage us to move to, is to start expecting that those things that are happening is like, as Vishen says, "Oh my God, he just broke up with me. That's amazing. I wonder where this is leading," right?
Yeah. So I think it's that question. I wonder where this is leading. as opposed to, I wonder how I got here. And when I say, as opposed to being 6 months along and the book is written and I could look back at hindsight, it's being in the present moment of it's happened and I wonder where it's going. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I've had two examples myself in the last 2 months. One was being turned down by this partner that didn't want my money, and the other was being turned down by another friend that had a very distinct view about how something should go, and I had a different view, and we ended up doing what she wanted because it was easier, and I didn't get what I wanted, and she got what she wanted. But in the end, that friction caused me to come up with another idea that I'm now developing from a product and business perspective that is so big that nobody in the world is doing. And it all came out of that block.
Right.
She said no. And I went, okay, fine. We'll do it your way with a little bit of like, you won, I lost, but give it a little space. And then I went, oh, wait a minute. You won, I lost, but look at the idea that came out of it. Thank you.
So here's a question then, right? So you're talking about rejection, and part of rejection, I think, are expectations. And when our expectations aren't met, we're often upset about it. Those two things, it sounds to me, sort of tie together around rejection and expectation. So if you have an expectation and it isn't met, then you feel rejected.
Yep.
And so how do you counter that?
So I'm not saying this is easy, but the other word instead of rejection is redirection. So every time we now get rejected, or we don't get our way, or somebody leaves us, or somebody doesn't want to be our friend, and that happens. I was just telling a couple stories on the weekend of people in my past life that have decided they don't want to be my friend anymore. And it's very clear. I'm like, okay, I wasn't at first, but what is that opening up space for? What is it creating space for? And, it's always an ego hit when somebody rejects you, especially in the love world, right? Either
Yeah.
love of family, love of friends, or love of a romantic partner. That rejection is so painful. But how can we open up that pain into power?
So how much space do you give though to feel the feeling?
I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is that I read somewhere that feeling, grieving, and sadness are healthy, expected, and need space. But there's a point at which, for example, if pain goes on 10 years, something's wrong, right?
Okay.
And I know people that have been in pain for a decade. There's a point at which something's wrong. And if you can't move past that, it requires some other kind of intervention. But we're not going to go down that road today. What I want to say is that if we could just start by realizing that, yeah, we're going to cry a little bit, we're going to lick our wounds. And, I remember going through a breakup and I was devastated. Like my whole identity was crushed. It was worthless. I felt worthless. But eventually, over time, and I used tools, listen, one of my greatest resources for anyone going through a breakup is Matthew Hussey. Matthew Hussey is a love and relationship and romance consultant, and he's got tons of videos on YouTube, and I used to listen to them ad nauseum over and over and over again. It was the only thing that made me feel better. But again, it's about we got to get feeling better because good feelings bring more good feelings, law of attraction.
Right. Right. It reminds me of the quote, appreciate the valleys because the peaks will be so much better.
Totally. And we do need to feel them, or we know what happens with unexpressed feelings. They just come back as anger, resentment, meanness, because they got to come out somehow, right?
Right.
But what I'm saying is, can we more quickly than not recognize that in this rejection, heartbreak, breakup, brokenness, there is a seed of greatness? And the quicker we can turn around, and it is a choice, I do believe at some point it's a choice to say, Jennifer, enough. I don't want to hear it anymore from you. I'm talking to myself, but I don't want to hear it anymore from you. We've done that. We've been there. We're done. And let's move on.
It's funny, it kind of reminds me of one of my breakups where you sort of get sick of listening to yourself
Totally.
because we all have
And
this
so do
internal,
other people.
right?
They
That's
get
just it,
sick of
right?
hearing
We,
too.
we have this inner monologue about the whole thing and trying to dissect everything. And I think the point at which you're sick of listening to yourself, or your
Yeah.
friends are sick of listening to you, is probably the point in time to recognize this too shall pass,
Yeah.
and it's time to move on to the next step.
And your friends will tell you. And if they don't tell you to your face, you'll be able to tell, because they'll not quite be listening as intently as they used to, or they'll come right out and say, you know what, every time we get together, all we talk about is your poodle,
Yeah,
or whatever it is, right?
yeah.
So they'll tell you, and maybe there's a good hint for everybody. If your friends are starting to tell you that this topic is coming up a lot, it's time to cut it out and stop talking about it. And that's the first step. Stop talking about it. Even if you're still ruminating on it, stop saying it out loud.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, so you were saying that you got this brilliant idea. How did you feel when that idea came on?
Oh my God. Like straight from God. It couldn't have come from any other place. I got this intense download. I felt amazing. I felt expansive. I felt like a millionaire already, a cajillionaire, because I knew what it was worth. One
Right.
idea.
So you don't think that maybe the idea would have come despite the difficulty, not because of it?
Not a
Why are you so
chance.
sure about that?
Because I had an idea in my head, and in a few years I'll tell you more about this, but right now it's a gentle seed and I have to keep it under the dirt right now. But the seed came from my wish to do something and not being able to do it, and then that wish that I wanted, I sat with and went, wait a minute, if I want this, maybe other people want this. And then I did a little research and figured out that this thing I wanted didn't exist. And that was the spur of an idea that, as it turns out, has a massive exit strategy if I decide to do this thing. So the point is, we can call it the invisible hand of alignment. The universe will rearrange people and places and timing without permission to give you what you wanted. So, for example, if I said I wanted, let's say I said I wanted $50 million. And then the next thing you know, this person blocks me on something that I wanted to do. I had no idea that block was the path to the $50 million. That block became the seed of an idea that is worth, if it's executed, it could be worth $50 million. It's like the author Chicken Soup for the Soul. The quick story on Jack Canfield is he started to believe that anything that he could have in life was possible. So he and his wife, sorry, conspired together, and they put a little note on their ceiling, and they were barely making ends meet at that point, of $100,000. And Jack said, wouldn't it be great if we could earn $100,000 this year? Well, guess what? They did. Just shy, 2,000 shy, 98,000 some odd, but they almost got there. And Jack said to his wife, if we could do 100,000, what do you think would happen if we put 1 million on our ceiling? And the $1 million doesn't come as money falling down from the sky. It comes usually by way of an idea. And so if you've asked for something and then you break your arm, that could be the universe's way of trying to bring in something you asked for last year. So all I'm saying is, you don't know. Let go of the how. You can't control how your dreams are going to come true. You have to let the universe bring it in. And sometimes it comes via a broken arm, or it comes via somebody blocking you.
So how do we know we're not cherry picking the successful outcomes and ignoring all the chaos that didn't go anywhere meaningful?
Well, listen, the only way I can answer these questions is with my own experience and with my own examples, right? So let's take this idea that I just had downloaded that I think could be really something. Do you know how many of these ideas I've had over the past 20 years and I've never acted on them? So there's going to be a lot of chaos if I decide to go down this road. It requires designers, it requires investors, it requires manufacturing. There's so many moving parts that right now I'm like, oh my God, do I really want to go down that road?
Mm-hmm.
I could just choose to say, that was nice, but I don't have it in me right now. Or I could choose to look at that and go, holy smokes, I'm going to explore this. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say is that looking at the chaos, I mean, I think our lives are just generally really noisy. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on. But if you've come up with something that you believe in, that matters to you, and you engage in it and do something about it, then that will lead you to the path that you want in terms of, I guess, abundance or money or what have you.
Or whatever, love, health, wealth, whatever it is, it always requires action.
Yeah.
Always. I think sometimes the question is, do you have the faith, again, in the universe to trust that impulse, seed, thought, imagination, to move it, to move the next step with it?
So, just to come back to something, and I think as I listened to this, one of the things that I was realizing as I was sort of editing my book again was having the feeling, and I think I told you this last week, having the feeling that I felt really good about it. Because I edit a lot of books for a lot of other authors, and sometimes that takes 5, 6, 7 times to read through and to index it and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you get a little bit bored with it. As much as I've played with this and written it and massaged it and reread it, I still have that niggly feeling that even if nobody else likes it, I think it's pretty good. And I think there's something there that someone else might find rather interesting. And as I spoke to you last week about this, you get that little butterfly in your chest or your stomach that you think, ooh, like this is kind of cool. And I wonder if that's where, you get out of your head and into your body and into the feeling of, as you said, like be present to the feeling and into the feeling of, I think this could be something good.
Yeah. And isn't that all we want in life, is to feel good? And we think we want things because we think they'll make us feel good. That's all we want, is to feel good.
Well, and honestly, I think at the end of the day, even if it went nowhere and I never published it, I'd still be pretty chuffed that I wrote it.
That's the key. When you're doing it for yourself, regardless of who reads it or if anybody picks it up, you're on the right path. It's the chasing of the money, it's the chasing of the downloads, it's the chasing of the exit strategy. If I'm not having fun every single day doing that project just for the sake of it, I'm going to run into a problem.
Right. It's sort of always trying to gather a resolution or a result as opposed to just being in the pleasure of what it is you're doing.
Totally. That's what our mothers have been telling us since the beginning of time. It's not the destination, it's the journey,
Yeah.
right? So there's a very famous founder and inventor. I think her name is Nikki Agarwal. I'm not sure if I got her last name right, but I think I did. And she invented, she calls it the three P's: periods, poop, and pizza. Not all in the same product, but she invented period proof panties. Nix, I believe, is the brand. I'd have to check that because there's a Canadian brand and there's an American brand, but I'm pretty sure she's Nix. Then she invented a bidet after she went to Japan and realized how wonderful that their toileting system was. She came home.
I can
eh,
I can vouch for that 100%. I have never seen better toilets, even in
Yeah.
public parks,
So she
anywhere
came
in the
home and
world.
invented a portable bidet system that can be strapped onto any toilet. And she also was the very first, I believe it was, um, what's the product that causes celiac disease? Wheat?
Gluten.
Gluten. She was the first gluten-free pizzeria in Manhattan. And that
Oh
was her
wow.
very first business. And every single one of them has blown up, and she's probably a cajillionaire now. Anyway, she wrote a book on inventions and the founding of businesses. And she says, if you can't love that thing for 7 years, don't go into it. And she has this 7 year rule that it takes to, design and build and manufacture and market and sell and then reiterate. And if you can't love it for 7 years and love it, don't even think about it.
Fascinating.
Anyway, we're off topic a little bit, but I think it's important just that we come back to the fact that you don't have a clue how the thing you've asked for is going to come to you. And it may come disguised as disaster. And so if we could catch ourselves faster and say, holy smokes, that was shitty, but I wonder what's coming. Or, oh my gosh, that's too bad I lost that, but it wasn't meant to be. Something better's coming. Or, gosh, I loved that person so much and I thought we were going to make it to the end of time and we didn't, but that means someone even better's coming. If we could start to put the end part on that sentence, man, our world would be so much more happy.
So this sounds a little bit like surrendering that you've spoken about before.
Yeah. And that's the key. You've got to let the universe do the work. There's some stuff you'll never be able to orchestrate. So ask, believe, sit back, and just wait to receive.
So what do you do about not feeling comfortable about controlling the timeline or the method?
I say, sorry for your luck, and what are we going to do to help you get? You can't control the world, control freaks. You can't. All you are is a control freak, and that's for your sanity, nobody else's, right? You can't imagine the things that have to happen in order for you to get what you want. And I'll give you an example. The love I wanted was in a 4 year relationship, working things out and trying things out and making amends and trying lots of things before the breakup finally happened. And 2 months later, he was introduced to me. But there was a lot of time spent orchestrating that entrance to me. Does that make sense?
Well, it
I
makes
can't
sense, but
control their breakup. I can't
yeah,
control their breakup. I can't control her. I can't control him, but he came.
man, it sounds like a lot of patience.
It is. But the better you get at being with yourself and loving yourself and sitting in the now as fun and great. And I just said to you, you said, "How are you, Jennifer?" I said, "I'm living my best life." That doesn't mean I don't have struggles and that I don't have family dynamics going on, but I am living my best life because I choose to say that and I choose to believe that. And I really am.
So, how do you tell the difference between surrendering and being passive?
Um, there might not be any difference to someone. And I'll tell you the greatest things that come into my life, and I said this to you maybe the other day, is everything that's come into my life has come into my life because I have said it and then I've forgotten about it. Literally forgotten about it. Like one day walking by a ravine, a lot on backed onto a ravine back during COVID, and I said, "My next house, I'm going to live on a ravine." I just made the statement, and then off we went for the next 3 years. I now live on a ravine, a beautiful ravine, but I didn't
Yeah.
go looking for ravine lots and I didn't put any action into it. So if that's what you want to call passive, then maybe it's passive.
So, is it possible, though, that this kind of surrender sort of invites people to avoid doing any hard work or any planning under the guise of trusting the process?
You have to be clear on the ask. That's the only thing. Be
Okay,
clear on the ask and then let it go.
got
Let me
it.
ask you a question. Have you ever had
Okay,
a moment? Have you ever had a moment that felt frustrating,
yeah.
but later on turned out to be exactly what you had asked for before that?
I'd have to remember what it was I had asked for.
Well, maybe that's a good exercise for everybody. Think back to a time that was very frustrating to you. But then, like, for example, devastating breakup, right? Devastating breakup. Broken up, devastated. I just told you about one in my life where I had a breakup that left me reeling for 3 months, but it paved the way for my love now,
Right.
right? And in the time, it felt brutal. But it also forced me to write a list of all the things I wanted. And guess what? He showed up. I'm trying to think of the timing, but like less than 6 months later.
You know, if I think about it, I think about how and I've talked about this before, how I transitioned out of my last job that was the grind of going in and out of Toronto into now living overseas. And it looked like it was a real hit, but
That's a
then it
great
ended up
example,
being amazing,
right?
to,
Because
start a new
that's a
life.
great example.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
can remember it from that perspective. Okay, you usually give us a little bit of homework.
Well, I think this week that, it would be a really good idea if people did look back on some of the biggest blows in your life, either heartbreak or illness or financial. Those are the big three. Look back on them and see if that big blow that you felt so passionate about in the moment actually led you to something that you had asked for. And even if you hadn't asked for it, something that was way better.
Okay, so here's where I land, at least maybe for now, is maybe some of the detours are the universe nudging us, or maybe it's just what happens when life doesn't go to plan. But I do completely agree that how we respond matters more than how it was meant to be. So if we call it manifestation and it helps you move forward, that's great. But I also think that reframing doesn't require any magic. It's just really good perspective. And sometimes the gift isn't the detour, it's how you choose to keep going anyway.
Yeah, so maybe a couple things just closing off. You're not off track, you're being rerouted. Think of that GPS.
Yeah.
Or, just because it feels messy doesn't mean it's not aligned. So, share with us, people. Like, share your weird manifestation story with us anywhere. Leave us a comment about the biggest um, devastation that you thought was going to be the end of the world and turned out to be the biggest blessing you've ever seen. Share them with us because I always encourage people to look for evidence of things that they think are not necessarily true or good. Look at the evidence. Look at other people's blows and see how it turned into a blessing.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Manifest This. If you've got a wild manifestation story, a skeptic's rant, or you just want to say hi, drop us a line at info@truthanddare.ca. We live for manifestation wins, skeptical side eyes, and your sparkly thoughts. Until next time, stay magnetic, stay messy, and keep manifesting like you mean it.